I recommend everyone to watch this popular American movie Judas and the Black Messiah. This film describes that the 1960s and 1970s were the most glorious era in the history of the American people, at least the most glorious era in the history of black Americans. Because they almost overthrew the capitalist system. In fact, the more you know about this period of American and world history, the more you realize that it was a stage when capitalism almost died. At that time, capitalism had already stepped into the grave with one foot, and the other foot was already in the air. If there were no drastic changes in China later, capitalism would have been sent to the grave, and it would not be the Soviet Union that sang an elegy for it at the end of the 20th century, but the Soviet Union. Definitely capitalist America. It's a pity that the sky will not destroy CAO. At the end of the 1970s, when the United States and other Western capitalist countries were already on the verge of collapse, an old man in the circle appeared in China, who saved Western capitalism and allowed capitalism to live for at least half a century. This kind of salvation mainly comes from two aspects. On the one hand, the historical legitimacy of socialism was destroyed with a single shot at the end of the 1980s, which caused the people of the world to completely despair of the socialist system and deeply regret the socialist revolution. Confession, on the other hand, it is to activate the propaganda machine, mobilize tens of millions of intellectuals and more than 1 billion people, desperately accuse and demonize socialism, and add fuel to the flames of the Western media, causing the vast majority of people in the world to be unable to know the truth. All believe that socialism is hell on earth. The combination of the above two aspects will completely block the path of socialism that the people of the world, including the people of the United States and Europe, have set foot on. Although we in Marxism believe that history is created by the people rather than individuals, there is no conflict between the people's creation of history and the individual's creation of historical crimes. Especially at the last historical moment in the 1960s and 1970s, when the exploiting classes were about to be eliminated and were being eliminated, the exploiting classes that were about to perish would inevitably seek out evil representatives who could combine all the crimes of their own class, and all the historical energy of this class is concentrated to fight back. It is by no means the first time that a new socialist force strong enough to withstand this final blow that combines the power of millennia of exploitation and oppression. Especially in terms of struggle experience, it is quite normal and inevitable that the new socialist revolutionary forces are often not the opponents of the exploiting classes that have been cultivated for thousands of years, and they will be defeated by the decadent forces that have been formed for thousands of years. And as Chairman Mao said, this kind of failure may not be one or two, but repeated many times. This is the dialectic of social and historical development, which cannot be changed by anyone. In terms of class struggle experience, the nascent socialist forces are by no means the opponents of the millennium exploiting class, which is very clearly described in the film. As Lenin said, fortresses are easiest to break from within. The resistance of the exploiting class to the exploited class has always been a combination of external repression and internal dissension, and the role of internal dissension is much greater than external repression. The vast majority of revolutions in history were not defeated by external repression by the enemy, but by internal divisions caused by internal traitors. The vigorous American Black Revolutionary movement in the 1960s and 1970s was destroyed from within by the US government's divisive policies. By no means, as the video narrator said, it was a failure caused by lack of a clear revolutionary goal. At that time, the American Black movement and the violent revolution against capitalism around the world had consciously accepted the guidance of Mao Zedong thought, had clear goals, clear directions, and clear roads, and could have won clear victories. However, at the last moment when they were rushing to victory, the extreme demonization of Mao Zedong thought came from China, the birthplace of Mao Zedong thought. Elements and the revolutionary masses can discern and resist. The result is that the ladle of dirty water that the old man in the circle splashed dirty at that time, Chairman Mao Zedong thought, socialism, the Chinese nation, the Chinese people, and the turmoil that was raging at that time. World Socialist Revolution, including the disintegration of the Soviet Union, is also related to this dirty water. The followers of the old man who drew the circle always attribute the responsibility for the disintegration of the Soviet Union to Gorbachev. In fact, the real culprit is the old man who drew the circle. He demonized socialism from two aspects, causing the common people to vent their anger on the Communist Party of the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, turning the Communist Party of the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe into a historical scapegoat. In the past, our ancestors said, one word can prosper the country, and one word can ruin the country. Today we have indeed seen what it means that one person can prosper the country and one person can lose the country. The East is red, the sun is rising, and China has a Mao Zedong. He seeks happiness for the people, and he is the great savior of the people. I saw a typical example of one person bereaved. Especially standing on the land of Africa, people will feel even more the worldwide consequences of the privatization of the circle painting old man. Africa was the first large-scale collective labor of serfdom, and later the white colonial manners were also large-scale collective labor. National independence and national liberation in the middle of the 20th century just caught up with China's people's commune system, and followed China on the same path. The road of people's communes for large-scale collective labor. But then China disbanded the people's communes and returned to the state of small-scale peasant economy, while Africa has no choice of small-scale peasant economy, and can't go back anywhere. Off-state. The tragic situation was simply unbearable. Although the old man who painted the circle temporarily saved Western capitalism and pushed Western capitalism into a state of recovery for decades, capitalism has decayed and declined after all, and it is bound to be eliminated by history. This cannot be saved by anyone. What China can save is only 1% of Chinese and foreign capitalists, while 99% of the world's people continue to suffer from dire misery and oppression. What saddens the Chinese people the most is that not only do those saved Western capitalist countries not thank China, but they are channeling dissatisfaction and resentment towards capitalism from people all over the world to China, turning China into a world in the 21st century. Do shiny on. Related reading, film critic, the highlight moment of the Black movement, they almost turned the United States into a communist country, a review of the American film Judas and the Black Messiah.